I don't want to spend all of this time with Andy Staples on Johnny Manziel, but because I want to know what it means for the season here. And you're rolling the dice. If you play him and he's found ineligible, ball game. There goes your season. But I also want to add Andy on. There are some great matchups. It's not just Alabama and A&M in week 3. There are great games right out of the box. I'm going to go see Stanford and Army at Army. That's second week of the season, Paulie?
Same day as the A&M Bama game, but this one's noon. We can go there and then still watch the game.
Well, I view this one as a bigger game. Army hosting Stanford at West Point, and I love going to West Point. Love it. I never could have gotten in, but I love going up there. Let's bring in Andy Staples, the great college football writer from Sports Illustrated. Let me start with the probability of Manziel with his eligibility here and rolling the dice at A&M. What's at stake right now, Andy?
Well, basically, his season, and you can, by extension, say their season. They've hired Lightfoot, Franklin, and White, which is the same firm that defended Auburn in the Cam Newton allegations to the NCAA. So they may be looking down that road. They may be looking at, okay, let's roll the dice and play him. But you have to remember, those first 2 games are really winnable. So there's some time there. And if they can get a quarterback ready, there's a lot of offensive weapons that he can use, not named Johnny Manziel. You know, Mike Evans, 6'5", 225 pounds, probably one of the best receivers in the country. They've got 3 good running backs that they can use. They've got a good offensive line. So, you know, they're going to kill Rice and Sam Houston State no matter who plays quarterback. The question is, on September 14th, who do you run out there? And, you know, there's a school of thought that says you just put Manziel out there because if you win and then the case goes away, then you're in position to win the national title. Or do you say, well, you win with him playing, and then all of a sudden something comes up or gets proven, and then he's declared ineligible. Now you have to forfeit that game. It is a pretty big roll of the dice there.
Why is the NCAA selling jerseys?
Because there's money in it. The NCAA and the schools seem to like to make money.
Yeah, but Andy, they make
the labor force doesn't make anything extra.
They make it seem like they're not really selling Johnny Manziel. They're just selling the jersey number 2, Texas A&M.
Yeah, but if you search for Johnny Manziel on their search bar,
I know.
Guess what comes up?
I know.
A Texas A&M.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore. Since
no.
Billis exposed him.
Jay Billis may have cost him a lot of money, because I'm telling you, if I am an attorney who specializes in that sort of thing, I'm trying to round up some folks whose jerseys got sold in the last few years to build a case, because they've always said it's not the player. It's just the school and the number. It has nothing to do with the player. Well, that's pretty definitive proof that it has everything to do with the player. And now, look, I'm not one of those guys who says these guys don't get anything. They get scholarships. That is a very valuable thing. But the fact of the matter is, Johnny Manziel gets the same scholarship as the third-string right guard. And Johnny Manziel is worth a lot more to A&M than that third-string right guard.
Okay, but
A&M put out a study that said he made him $37 million in free publicity last year.
But do you think that, and there's only a handful of guys who can do this, that Manziel and Braxton Miller and Taj Boyd and Clowney?
Taj Boyd, Clowney, yep. There's more than you think. I mean, basically anybody whose jersey is getting sold.
Well, let's say 15 guys. No, I mean selling a lot, selling volume here. Now, you might say Murray at Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there are guys who you can move.
AJ McCarron, there were like 10 variations of the number 10 jersey that popped up if you put in AJ McCarron.
Should they be able to profit off their likeness?
Absolutely.
But how do
They're
you do
Americans,
that?
aren't they?
But how do you do it, Andy?
Let them. What would the difference be, Dan, if, let's say, you said, okay, schools, you don't change anything you do. You give them scholarships, and that's it. And anybody else who wants to pay them, you pay them. Well, this is what everybody says. But the best recruits would go to the richest schools. They already do. But the same teams would win the national title every year. Hasn't the same team won the national title 3 of the last 4 years? Nothing would change, except these guys would probably have agents, yes. And people say, oh, you don't want agents. Guess what? They already have agents, except they're not as professional as the agents who represent the NFL players. They're skeevy guys who come up to them when they're in 9th, 10th grade and leech off them. This is a case where, people complain about Walmart crushing mom and pop. Well, Pop in this case is Will Lyles from the Oregon case. You want CAA, which is Walmart, to crush mom and pop in this case.
Can I bring you back? I'm going to take a break, bring you back. Can
Sure.
we actually talk college football?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
They still play that?
Yeah, I think they're going to in the next couple of weeks. But,
Awesome.
just give people an idea that there's going to be there's always a couple of surprise guys who come out of nowhere. But, you can give us sort of the landscape here, what to expect or look for in the first couple of weeks there. We'll continue with Andy Staples, their Sports Illustrated college football writer. Andy Staples, Sports Illustrated college football writer, is back with us. Let's talk football here. The best September game. First is what?
I don't know. Can we go in August? Because August 30th has Georgia Clemson, which I think is going to be a fantastic game.
2 top 10 teams. All right, so that's the best game in August.
There's some other ones that are a little more off the radar, like Friday night, the August 29th, you've got Texas Tech at SMU. You know, Hal Mummy's working for SMU now. He's like the grandfather of that air raid offense, and Cliff Kingsbury's at Texas Tech, and he's like the grandson in the air raid offense. I mean, they might actually combine for 1 million points on a Friday night while everybody's at the bar drinking. Imagine the prop bets.
Okay, so you got Alabama A&M, which will be the highlight of September, assuming Johnny Manziel plays. Now, you got a couple of kids from A&M suspended, some defensive backs. I mean, they've got some injuries and some issues and some kids who went to the NFL. How good is A&M good enough to challenge for a national title?
Offensively, yes. Defensively, that remains to be seen. Offensively, they're as good as anybody. Even if Manziel doesn't play, they're still a really good offense. But with Manziel, they're off the charts good. The problem is Alabama's offense is also going to be off the charts good. We don't know how those linemen are going to get replaced. We don't know if their replacements will be as good. Chances are they won't, considering that was one of the best offensive lines ever. But chances are they'll be pretty good. And then you can combine them with probably the deepest set of skill position players Alabama's had in the Saban era. That's going to be a really good offense to go with what we already know is a really good defense.
It's hard to tell. Is AJ McCarron really good, a really good college football player? Because I don't hear his name projected into the NFL like I do other quarterbacks. Why is that?
I think he's a really good quarterback who is going to be really good in the NFL. He's one of those guys that if you put him in another system, put him on another team, he'd be chucking for 300 yards a game. But you're just not asked to do that at Alabama. What you are asked to do is occasionally perform a miracle like he did last year at LSU. And he did that just fine. When they have needed him, absolutely needed him, and I'm talking about the BCS title game against LSU when they basically flipped their entire game plan for the whole year and had him throwing on first down on most first downs, and then when they needed him to rally them in Death Valley last year, he's done it on the biggest stage with no problems.
The normal question we have leading up to the season, Heisman contenders here. Is there anybody who sneaks into the pig pile here?
Oh, yeah, always. There's always somebody we're not talking about. That's the thing. I think the way the media coverage has gone, now you almost have to be off the radar to win the Heisman. You have to be off the radar at the beginning of the season because we're so sick of hearing about everybody else. You know, we didn't know who Johnny Manziel was this time last year. You knew who Robert Griffin was going into that year if you followed the Big 12 pretty closely. But the mass, most of the country didn't know who he was. So there's
same
probably
thing.
somebody.
Cam Newton too came out of nowhere with Auburn.
Exactly. So there's somebody. Maybe it's Todd Gurley or Keith Marshall, the running backs of Georgia. One of them or both of them are going to put up huge numbers. Or maybe it's Aaron Murray, their quarterback.
Yeah, Murray, I could see. And you don't want to split the vote there, and that could happen with Georgia. Oregon's offense. Is it going to look the same with a new coach in there with Chip gone?
I think they're going to try to make it look as close to what Chip ran as possible. The question is, was Chip that X factor, his play calling, his ability to see what was going on the field at all times? And we'll find out if Mark Helfrich can replace him. But they don't really want to change anything, nor should they.
Yeah, they don't need to.
Think about what they have. Marcus Mariota is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Anthony Thomas is maybe the best playmaker offensively in the country. There's all kinds of stuff they can do with that offense if they just don't screw it up.
If I gave you Alabama or the field?
Well, a week ago, I probably would have taken the field. Now, with everything up in the air with Johnny football, I might be leaning toward Alabama.
Who's the sneaky team? Who's the team that, maybe not in the top 10?
Well, the one that's sort of on the edge of the top 10, they'll probably start the season in the top 10, but the one I would watch is South Carolina because their schedule sets up really well. And in a one-game situation, them versus Alabama in the SEC championship game, they might have a shot because Steve Spurrier historically has done really well against Nick Saban. The Clowney factor is hard to ignore, and South Carolina's got a veteran offensive line, 2 capable quarterbacks. So watch them because their schedule draw was pretty lucky this year compared to what they've had in the past. And they get Florida at home. They play Georgia week 2 while the young Georgia defenders are still kind of learning the ropes. You don't want to see Georgia in week 10, I promise you. So they got a shot.
We will check in with you closer to the season. We appreciate it, Andy, as always.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Andy Staples, the Sports Illustrated college football writer. How about Georgia's schedule to start? You got Clemson, South Carolina. There's some good matchups.